Throne of Magical Arcana by Cuttlefish That Loves Diving, read by Luna. Chapter 6 Accident. None of them heard any sound of struggling, screaming, or of anyone leaving. The silent Hausen, a high-level night squire, just disappeared. A chilly feeling rose from Lucian's feet and quickly spread all over his body. He held the hilt of his sword tight and his breathing became heavier. He quickly turned his head but saw nothing. The wall on the other side was covered with weird shining green moss. Suddenly, a bitter scream broke the deadly silence. Lucian quickly turned and saw a terrifying scene. A monstrous rat as big as a man had tripped Corella and sunk its sharp nails into his shoulder. Blood gushed all over Corella's silver chainmail, dyeing it red. The monster had scarlet evil eyes that withered. However, Corella's blade stopped its row of long and sharp teeth from causing damage. As a night squire, Corella saved his own life with the most common movement in their training. He thrust the shield on his left hand with all his strength into the rat's stomach. Nothing was scarier than an unknown, so at least for Lucian, a huge rat was much better than an adult man disappearing all of a sudden for no reason. Lucian took a deep breath and swung his sword of light at the huge rat to help Corella. At that moment, a bestial roar came from behind Lucian. Gary? When Lucian was about to turn, a night saber hacked at his back. The white light of shield trembled and dimmed a bit. The huge impact pushed Lucian several steps forward and he almost lost his balance. However, the attack didn't stop there. The saber was chasing Lucian and continuously tried to hurt him. Lucian did his best to dodge it, while having no time to fight back or use his badge. He felt confused and surprised. Why was Gary attacking me? Lucian could not see clearly in the darkness. If it was not Gary, then there was only one possibility. Gary was already dead. With good timing, the saber gave Lucian no chance to find his balance, and soon he was pushed into the corner. Lucian was surprised that the protection from the shield, he did not get injured from the attacks at all. He took a deep breath and tried to calm down, getting ready for the next attack. Then he dodged the saber's assault by throwing himself on the ground. At the same time, his left hand grabbed the badge. This time, Lucian finally saw who was attacking him. It was the group's leader, Gary. Nevertheless, the muscles on his face were contorted, and his eyes were shining with scarlet light. He looked like an insane beast. The poison from the rats. The poison could deprive humans' consciousness and turn them into bloodthirsty beasts. Lucian tried to understand. But why haven't I been affected? Without further thinking, Lucian rubbed the badge and started chanting. A round iron shield launched a hard whack on Lucian's shield of light. Although the shield did not break, the violent impact suffocated Lucian for a second, interrupting his casting. As a former night squire, Gary received formal training to interrupt spellcasting. So to him, a layman like Lucian with no basic training would be unable to resist him. While Lucian was being trapped with Gary, Corella could not hold the rat back much longer. His right hand was trembling from the effort of holding the enemy's mouth away. Fortunately, the huge humanoid rat was also becoming weaker. Unable to cast the spell, Lucian changed his mind and swung his sword of light upwards. He knew that his summoned sword of light was stronger than Guard's saber. Although the swing did not strike true, the radiance from the sword terrified Gary. He stopped attacking Lucian's shield and switched to a defensive position. It seemed like he didn't want to be further apart from Lucian. For a traditional knight, letting his enemy successfully cast a spell would be very dangerous. Without any sound of impact, the sword caught Gary's saber as if it was a piece of wood. Gary barely managed to raise his shield in time and block with it, but the sword left a deep crack right in the middle of the shield. When Lucian was about to launch his next attack, the sword of light suddenly turned into thousands of shining pieces, indicating the spell was used up. Actually, its power started decreasing at the very beginning when it destroyed the magic wall concealing the chamber. Lucian was unable to react for a moment, and Gary seized the chance, smashing Lucian's protection with his shield. Now, Lucian's sword and shield were both gone. Having no time to hesitate, Lucian rubbed the badge desperately to cast his spell. Before Lucian could spell the chant, Gary punched his stomach. Like a cooked shrimp, Lucian cowered in great pain. A wave of strong acid rising from his stomach burned his throat. Gary reached out his hand and squeezed Lucian's neck, choking him. Lucien struggled fiercely and used his right hand to try to free his neck. He felt great pain in his neck and lungs, and his eyes were turning black. The badge in his left hand was being held firmly to his chest by Gary's other hand. Lucien could hear his own gasp. He could feel the cold metal glove Gary was wearing. It felt like Lucien's soul had left his body and was observing from the side. Suddenly, Lucien's will to survive erupted. His soul power increased dramatically all of a sudden and broke through a certain limit, spreading like water from an ocean. At the same time, Gary's strength started disappearing. Lucien got a precious chance to breathe. Learning from his past mistakes, this time Lucien did not waste any time being hesitant or confused. He tried to focus and grabbed the badge again. As soon as he touched it, Lucien's spirit suddenly entered into an illusionary world of light, where many lines, circles, and triangles formed a weird looking cross in the air. Lucien recognized the cross instantly. It was the cross on Benjamin's badge, and he could feel that Benjamin's power was continuously coming out of the cross. Out of curiosity, Lucien moved closer and tried to touch it. The cross suddenly trembled and started accumulating power. Soon he felt its power became overwhelming. Feeling the danger, Lucien hurriedly tried to retrieve his spirit back to the real world. But it was too late. A white beam of light shot out from the cross and burned his spirit on the side. A strong, nauseous feeling hit him. Lucien felt like his head was splitting, and two streams of cool, rusty, metal-smelling liquid came down from his nose. Suddenly, the light beam somehow materialized and burst from the badge that Lucien was wearing. Gary did not have the slight chance to withdraw his hand. Starting from the hand squeezing Lucien's neck, the light beam quickly dissolved his arm and part of his shoulder in seconds like some kind of super strong corroding acid. There was no blood coming out, and the wounds instantly turned black. Divine power can be activated without any spell? This surprised Lucien. He quickly dodged to avoid the enemy's following attack, but he felt all his muscles aching and it was hard to move. Then what Lucien saw shocked him greatly. Gary was lying on the ground, dying, with his eyes half open, and the scarlet light on them was gone. The pool of blood left by the dead rats had evaporated, forming a red mist and pervading the chamber and nearby pipes. The weird human-shaped plant in the corner was stretching its branches cozily in the mist. On the other side lay Corella and Hausen, with their own sabers stabbing each other's back. Chapter 7. Gain and Temptation. Surrounded by the red mist, Lucien felt his limbs melting and the nerves in his brain swelling and jerking. In his eyes, Corella and Hausen changed from human bodies to giant rats and continued switching back and forth. It's an illusion. Lucien was quite sure, so he concentrated and spread his spirit again like waves. Then everything became stable. No changes or contortion happened. Lucien saw Corella and Hausen lying on the ground with wounds all over their bodies, dying. This is a very well-designed magic trap. Did the illusion originate from the blood of the rats or the peculiar plant? Lucien thought to himself. He finally understood that from the very beginning, when they killed the first rat, they were already trapped in the illusion. Lucien was protected by the light shield, and his spiritual power was a little bit stronger than common people, so he was unaffected by the illusion. The holy strike that shot out of the badge not only evaporated Gary's right hand and shoulder, but also the stone ceiling of the chamber. There was a wide hole there, from which chunks of stone were falling like rain, as if the chamber would cave in at any time. Dust and small stones dispersed the red mist. Lucien felt his strength gradually recovering. Having no idea what would happen next, his brain started quickly functioning again. Except for the 2 more light spells, Lucien got nothing useful left. His muscles were still weak from the paralyzing red mist. Then his attention was drawn to the plant in the corner, which was shaking and wobbling due to the falling stones. The plant cannot protect itself aside from creating an illusion? Lucien wondered. He tried his best to stand up again and dragged his body towards the plant. He moved very slowly and faltered several times. Sharp stones kept falling on him, leaving painful wounds all over his body. Lucien took a deep breath and kept moving. After so much experience, he became calm and decisive. Reaching out his right hand, he firmly grabbed the main stem of the plant. The plant had a pulse like that of a living being. Lucien felt like he was grabbing the veins of a creature beating with blood. He pulled the stem with all his strength. Suddenly, the plant shrank and burst out an extremely bitter and sharp scream. Lucien did not succeed on his first try, so he kept twisting it with all his strength. Like a dying man struggling for survival, the plant screamed, stretched out its branches, and entangled them around Lucien's arm. The plant was moist, slimy, and cold, and its tentacles had countless tiny burrs which kept burying themselves into Lucian's skin. Fighting back his fear, Lucian pulled hard again. Crack! The plant suddenly stopped screaming. Red liquid spurted out of it and splattered all over Lucian's chest, leaving a strong, bloody smell in the air. Feeling limp, Lucian hurriedly leaned against the wall to maintain his balance. After the plant was snapped in half, the red mist became much denser and almost turned into liquid. As soon as the blood mist from the plant reached the 3 books on the desk, they instantly started corroding. It only took a couple of seconds to completely corrode all the books. Lucian didn't get any time to read anything. It must be another magic trap, Lucian thought. In case the chamber got discovered, these sorcerer's notes would destroy themselves automatically when the mist reached a certain density. Ugh, it was such a pity for Lucian. He was hoping to find some mighty magic spells in the notes. Just then, he noticed something shining in the spirit library. Out of curiosity, Lucian let his spirit enter the library. Then his eyes opened wide with great surprise. A new bookshelf appeared, and there was a small tag which read Magic Arcana. Under the tag, there were 3 books. They were the same ones which just got destroyed. The library can collect books as well? Wait, what about the content then? I didn't have a chance to read them at all. Lucian was trying to understand how the library worked. As the corrosion happened really fast, the whole books were still destroyed page after page. Probably the library can copy the content, then the projections of the books can be stored here, or something like this. Lucian was just guessing. He needed more proof. Staring at the 3 labels, a strong, hesitant feeling rose in Lucian's mind. Wouldn't it be too dangerous to learn magic in a world where divine power dominated everything and sorcerers were hated by the public? Lucian knew he could not waste too much time down here. What was more surprising was that after the mist completely disappeared, both Corella and Hausen twitched a little bit. They were still alive. Lucian knew that he really had to hurry up and get all of them out of this terrible place. Benjamin suddenly groaned when he felt Lucian activated the Holy Strike. At that moment, their spirits were somehow connected. He was more than surprised. Lord Benjamin? Paul asked with concern. Under the silver moon, Benjamin's face did not look well. He said in a low voice, "Something unexpected happened down there. Damn it, she was just an apprentice. These guys are useless. Paul, you wait here. If I don't come back in 5 minutes, ask the bishop for help." Because there was a spirit imprint on the badge, Benjamin could feel it, or he would not have lent the badge to a young guy he had just met. He did not expect that his own imprint could be activated by someone else. Misfortune always comes with arrogance and prejudice. For Benjamin, knights were just a bunch of vulgar and ignorant guys who knew nothing more than how to fight with just their physical strength. So without giving any thought to whether the guards were actually more suitable, Benjamin directly gave the badge to Lucian, a young boy whose spirit was stronger than common people. Benjamin's perspective came from his past experiences. The family he came from, the Rafati family, was one of the most powerful families in the Duchy of Orvarit. Rafati family was known for producing gifted divines. While knights had to learn spells, offsprings of Rafati family were born with the blessings in their blood. Benjamin was no way close to being the most talented child in his family, but after entering the monastery, he stood out among his peers and soon became the formal pastor and a divine caster. But now, as a formal pastor, he was having trouble dealing with a trap left behind by a sorcerer's apprentice. It would definitely affect his reputation and position in the church, so he had no choice to rush over there and solve the trouble himself. Paul was surprised as well. They had the badge. Is there a real sorcerer present there? Sounds of footsteps came when Lucian was about to drag himself out of the chamber to ask for help. He became anxious, for fear that it was another witch or wizard who came, then he would not be able to safely escape with his life again. Above all, he felt worried because a chamber was one of the best places to execute somebody and thus keep their mouths shut. Lapland bloodvine? Benjamin took a glimpse at the corner and quickly speculated what happened. He looked at Lucian and the 3 guards. Fortunately, they are still alive. Benjamin was a little surprised when he saw Lucian. Benjamin thought, it seems like when he activated my imprint, his spirit also increased. He had reached the basic level of a trainee pastor. Quite lucky. However, everything has changed. The church now is not in its absolute dominant status like 300 years ago. Today, divinity power can't be acquired with talent alone. Being a real pastor requires systematic learning from a young age. The Emperor of Magical Arcana. It was he who started the close to 400-year golden age of the development of divinity power and magic. He changed the rule of how to become a divine caster. As a member of Rafati family, compared with most pastors, Benjamin knew more about the circumstances of the world. What's more, he was not that devoted to his particular faith. More accurately, being an aristocrat had actually conflicted with his identity of belonging to the church. Even further, after the highest theology conference more than 300 years ago, the church was partitioned into two, one south and the one north. They both criticized each other for being a heresy, but neither of them were ever interrupted or prevented from continuously gaining the divine power, which made many bishops and cardinals doubt whether God really existed, or if all of this was just a test for God's followers. This kind of attitude directly affected the following younger generations, like Benjamin, for hundreds of years. Besides, to fit into this fast developing era, several popes had introduced part of the knowledge gained through the exploration of the world by the Arcanists to modify the foundation of theology. The adjustment guaranteed the fast development of divinity and the emergence of countless great spellcasters. Therefore, the South Church could still preserve its predominant position in general and kept growing while being surrounded by many powerful enemies like heretics, evil sorcerers, dark creatures, and so on. But at the same time, this behavior additionally prompted more conflicts within the South Church itself. Benjamin's thoughts came back to reality. He released some white powder from his hand and chanted some weird spell. A strong wind blew the red mist away. He pointed his finger towards Gary. A white light fell down on his wound. The wound started healing and soon regained its original color. After curing Corella, Hausen, and Lucien one by one, he confirmed with them what happened. Benjamin checked the desk to ensure nothing was left there. Move all the stuff back to the church, including the bodies of the rats. He put the badge, which had been already returned by Lucien, back to his neck and said, God has forgiven you. Go back and rest. May God bless you. Initially, Benjamin wanted to reward Lucien with some money or even wait to see whether the kid had the potential to be further trained if things went well. But after all this, the only thing Benjamin wanted Lucien to leave as soon as possible. He got another problem to face, Gary's right hand. He did not master the spell for limb regeneration. Having the chance to leave, Lucien hurriedly walked towards the exit. By the time he left the chamber, he heard Corella talking to Hausen in a low voice. Gary lost his right hand. He probably can't stay in the guards anymore. He walked outside the pipes with complicated mixed feelings. The crowd mobbed him instantly with great concerns. Little Evans, is the ghost gone now? Auntie Eliza asked loudly from far off. Lucien nodded. Yes, the place had been purified by the pastor and the guards. The mood lightened immediately after they got Lucien's certain answer. They started being more curious about what happened down there. Lucien, what did the ghost look like? Terrifying? I knew Lord Benjamin could handle it. Lucien is blessed by God. He got the chance to use the badge. What a pity. Lucien is not a child anymore, or he would be able to go to the monastery and become a real pastor. Think about it, a pastor from Aderon. Lucien was bothered by the comments. I'm too old to be a pastor already? Although Lucien himself never thought about being a pastor because of his identity, it was still quite depressing knowing he was completely hopeless after seeing such an amazing power. My poor little Evans, look at your face, you must be very exhausted, Auntie Eliza asked. Lucien really needed some time to himself. He nodded and walked directly towards the small shanty. He closed the door and sat down on his bed. He could hear the crowd gradually dispersing after Benjamin and the guards left. Lucien missed his parents and friends, but could not do anything about it. He started thinking about his own future again. The real Lucien did not get any training before, so I could neither become a pastor nor a knight. If I want to get rid of this life and become someone, then I need to learn magic. But then I would be an enemy of the church and all the people, including Auntie Eliza. Do I have other choices? Finally, Lucien decided to first look at the notes in his mental library. A little while later, Lucien talked to himself in a low voice awkwardly. I can't read. Chapter 8. Aalto. The notes were full of strange characters, and Evans, as a poor child, was uneducated and illiterate. As a hopeless illiterate, Lucien could only helplessly stare at the notes and yearn for the amazing power. Although he had experienced a lot here, he still felt extremely depressed with the gap. He was a university student in another world, but now he was just a poor guy who couldn't even read. Lucien made up his mind. He must learn how to read. Even if Lucien could not be a pastor, learning how to read and write was not a bad thing in order to get rid of poverty. He had no physical strength. If there was a way out for Lucien, it would be something related to knowledge. Feeling motivated by his decision, Lucien again picked up the notes, hoping to uncover any other hidden secret. There were many strange but familiar patterns in these notes, like lines and geometric figures. Lucien guessed they were probably magic seals or circles because he saw them in a badge before. Then he saw some formulas which might be used to make magic potions. The characters in the second note were even more complicated. Actually, the first two notes were of different characters. Fortunately, the third one looked more interesting and contained the same character as the second one. It was filled with assorted hand produced figures like plants, minerals, and creatures. After a round of searching, he still couldn't find anything useful. Lucien stopped thinking and tried to fall asleep. He strongly desired to change his life, so he could not let his messy concerns and worries disturb himself. From tomorrow onwards, he must fight for his own life. Lucien fell asleep quickly after the intense fight. Meanwhile, in the dark sewers, a black rat with scarlet and cold eyes was moving around the ruins and quickly went in another direction. After a while, the rat found a hidden hole and disappeared. In the early morning, sounds of people speaking with a bucket clapping broke the silence. The street was already livened up. Lucien, who used to hate getting out of bed in the morning, forced himself to get up as soon as he woke up. He lighted the stove and boiled some hot water. While nibbling his last loaf of brown bread, which felt like chewing a piece of wood, Lucien started planning his day. This world was still unfamiliar to him, thus, his plan was difficult to accomplish. He first decided to find a job to feed himself before learning how to read. I definitely gotta be careful, can't let anyone notice, Lucien talked to himself. Before he left, Lucien grabbed his 7 coins to feel a little more secure. He locked the door and went directly to Auntie Eliza's place, who was the only one he knew there. Morning, Lucien. A girl with black hair greeted him on the streets, filled with curiosity. Lucien didn't know her. Hurriedly, he made a smile and replied, Hey, I'm gonna visit Auntie Eliza. Sorry, but I'm running late. And he quickly passed her by. Hi, Lucien. Did you really face the ghost? How do you feel when you cast the spell? I heard a guard lost his right arm. It was very dangerous last night, wasn't it? It seemed Lucien had become famous in the district overnight. Within 3 minutes of walking, a few neighbors came and asked about his adventure. Lucien knew none of them. He could only smile and head towards his destination. Before Lucien knocked the door, he heard a familiar voice. Little Evans, good morning. Joel was walking towards him. Good morning, Uncle Joel. It was such a relief for Lucien. Dressing neatly, Joel was holding a classic harp. Did you have breakfast? Don't be in a rush to find a work until you're fully recovered. You can always eat here, don't worry. Lucien appreciated his kindness so much. He started feeling he was not alone here. Thank you, Uncle Joel, but I had my breakfast already, and I got blessed by Pastor Benjamin last night, so now I'm completely fine. Joel nodded and walked with Lucien side by side. Later, you should go and find Con at Copper Cornet. He still owes me a bottle of Lasse wine. He will introduce a good job for you. Then he turned his face toward Lucien and said in a serious voice, Evans, you're already 17. It's time you started thinking about your future. Uncle Joel? Lucien knew he was saying the truth. Joel sighed slightly. No one can make a living with only doing labor all the time. You know it. I've seen a few old labor guys with no saving and no children to rely on in their last days. All of them died in their 50s or even 40s. He paused a little bit and continued. I know learning will take a long time, but if you are willing to work hard, you can always support yourself with a skill. During their conversation, they walked through a gate where both guards were standing on both sides. Lucien's eyes suddenly lit up. Broad and clean streets, busy stores, and pedestrians wearing colorful and fancy clothes. Music was wafting in the soft wind. It was a different world compared with the poor added-on district. Lucien thanked Joel sincerely. Joel started joking again. Besides, sometimes a master only has a single daughter. Who knows, maybe you can be promoted directly from an apprentice to a future owner. You know, a nice-looking, promising young fellow is always in demand. Lucien replied with an awkward smile. Joel finally stopped around a corner. He placed a hat on the ground and got ready to play his harp. Lucien was a little bit surprised to find that his uncle Joel was a street artist. Joel pointed to the luxurious and magnificent palace in the distance and smiled. That is the Hall of Chant. For me, I feel like I'm playing music in the hall. Before Lucien said anything, Joel continued murmuring as if something inside his heart was triggered. 400 years ago, guided by the Holy Heights Empire, the church marched towards the west. Finally, they occupied the last central city of the old Sylvanus magic empire, Aalto. The army drove the dark creatures and demons away into the dark mountain range. Since then, Aalto has always been one of the most famous cities across the whole continent. 300 years ago, under the guidance of the Pope Charles I, who was still a cardinal at that time, lots of famous scholars and artists studied and edited together the hymns and poems of past ages. After he became the Pope, he promoted the singing style in every church and started regular choirs. Since then, Aalto has been enjoying the reputation of the city of psalms. Because we are very close to the dark mountain range, elves, dwarves, and dog-headed men, or even say Cynocephalus often came in contact with us, and some even became members of our duchy. Different kinds of musics were added in Aalto, and the polyphonic music was born here. Then followed formal symphony, gesso violin, etc. Countless artists and musicians inscribed their names on the pages of history. Playing inside the Hall of Chant is a great honor for every musician and bard. Although I cannot get in there, it's also a pleasure for me to play my harp here. After parting from Joel, Lucien took Joel's suggestion and started heading towards Copper Coronet. While asking the way, he was enjoying the wonderful music in the wind. As soon as he turned back to Aderon, he saw a busy pub with a coronet board hanging there. Outside the pub, from time to time, young girls and women would come and glance into it and then leave with disappointment. Chapter 9. A Tough Start. It was interesting and confusing for Lucien. The morning was obviously not busy hours for a pub. A slender blonde girl was speaking inside from the pub door. Then she sighed and was about to leave, but was surprised to notice Lucien standing there, waiting for her to get out of the way. "Oh, Lucien!" she exclaimed. Lucien was already used to the situation. He smiled and greeted. "Morning! What are you doing here?" The girl's tanned skin suddenly flushed. I was just on my way. I heard there is a new bard here today in the pub, so anyway, I gotta go, Lucien." Before Lucien said his goodbye, the young girl rushed away with her cheeks red. Lucien guessed the bard she mentioned should be very attractive. However, it had nothing to do with Lucien. He was here to work. He gently pushed the door and stepped inside the pub. Lucien's first impression towards the pub was not very good. A dusky place with a strong alcohol smell and messy tables and chairs. It took his eye a while to get accustomed to the dark environment. Several drunkards were awoken by the noise. They emitted a few curses and went back to sleep on the tables. There was an hooked-nosed man in a tight black coat, probably in his 30s, sitting on the bar stool and was sipping his amber-colored wine. Without saying anything, he glimpsed at Lucien. Lucien looked around. Soon he found a dwarf snoring loudly behind the counter. He was sitting on a high bar chair with his round head leaning against the wall. His shining saliva was dropping on his blond beard, which was tied into a bow. Knowing the dwarf would not wake up himself, Lucien knocked on the counter loudly with his fingers. The drunkard started swearing in the background. The old dwarf slowly woke up with sleepy eyes. "Oh, my Lucien! Finally, you're a grown-up now. Finally, you understand the wonderfulness of wine. Cheers for our new customer." "It's already morning, uncle." Lucien was hesitant about how to call the pub owner. Cone knobbed his eyes and looked around. "I'm not drunk. Don't lie to me. What a wonderful night." After quite a while, Cone finally sobered up. When Lucien asked about the job, Cone made a slightly pained look and said, I don't really have good ones now. All I got are some odd jobs." 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Let me see. 3 fills for carrying stuff from the grocery to the gate zone. But you know, you have to give 1 fill to the gangsters there at the end of the day. Then all you get from the work is 2 fills, only enough for buying a old brown bread. Another thing, yes. Here, the Musician Association is gonna do a cleaning today. You can rent a cart and help them with the garbage. You can get 8 fills after the rent, but also 3 fills go to the bastards. There's something else too. Wait, no, I don't think you're qualified for that. Lucien nodded. He only had 7 fills with him. He did not really have many choices. Working for the association was the best one. "Cone, do you have better jobs with better payment?" Lucien asked with curiosity. Cone laughed loudly. "Oh, yes, of course, my boy. But those are for real men, as they require strength and courage, not for a young boy. You don't even know how to drink." Then he lowered his voice. "I've seen so many people setting off toward the dark mountain range from my bar. They were mercenaries and experienced adventurers, but very, very few of them came back alive." Cone belched and continued. "Of course, they all made a big fortune, though. Don't underestimate them. Many of them were high-level knights." A gentle but attractive voice came from behind Lucien. His tone was lifted slightly in the end, sounding elegant and seductive. Lucien turned around and saw a silver-haired man walking towards them from one of the pub's rooms. He was wearing slim pants and a red jacket covered with a black high-collared coat. Those formal clothes looked amazingly casual but elegant on him. He had quite refined features. Silver eyes, tall and straight nose, thin lips. The man almost looked like an charming elf with his silky silver hair, like a full moon at night. Holding a harp in his hand, the man picked a bar chair and sat down. "Hey, Ryan, want a drink?" Con grabbed a glass. Thanks, but I only drink at night. He smiled. Peace has been prevailing on the continent for almost 300 years. There are more nights than people need. The Duchy of Orverit, the closest duchy to the Dark Mountain Range, is full of myths and mysterious treasures. Many new and honored knights come here to seek credits, honor, and fortune. He fiddled with the harp and continued. Besides, some of them were broken knights, some of them were convicted, some of them were travelers, while some of them were dark knights who were not admitted by the church. Khan was a little unhappy with Ryan's rejection. He murmured, Lucian, this is Ryan Carindia. As a bard, he traveled a lot, and he just got away from the passionate trial ladies in the kingdom of Syracuse. The kingdom of Syracuse? Lucian asked. Khan burst out laughing. His long blonde beard swayed with his laughter. With an ambiguous smile on his wrinkled face, he replied, Yes, the Syracuse, a passionate, romantic nation where love is the top priority. A drunkard joined them when they started talking about Syracuse. He loudly burped and asked with eagerness, Ryan, the ladies and madams they're in trial, were they really that beautiful and hot? Ryan smiled casually and answered with his unique tone, Yes, they were. Their eyes were like morning stars, hair like silk, lips like roses, and their fair skin like milk. I can still remember the perfumes they wore and their wet, warm breaths. A few ladies and duchesses even invited me to their secret manners. The drunkard cut in with excitement. Did you go then? Lucian knew the most common topic within men was women. While he was listening, he was also thinking about his learning how to read. Ryan, with the same smile, answered. I told them I did not like dirty things that had been used by someone else. I love beautiful, clean, and pure lives, no matter men or women. They are the tastiest things in the world. Bullshit, Ryan. There was no way you dared to speak to them like that. Right, if you had answered like this, you would be in the famous jail in Troya now. Come on, Ryan. Those ladies, many of them could compete with the nice. Dare you? Ryan shrugged his shoulders, slightly facing Con and drunkard's laughter. That's why I'm here now, not in Syracuse. Pounding the counter, Con was laughing so hard that he almost got choked. Drunkards there were all awakened by his pounding, looking angry but confused. Such a good story from our beloved Ryan. Con's face turned red. Cheers for the wonderful story. All the drunkards knew that was ale. They pushed their ways to the counter to grab the free drink. Cheers for Ryan, the blowhard. The blowhard! They laughed and shouted. A while later, when the pub was finally quietened down again, Con was very surprised to find that Lucian was still there. What else, my boy? Con asked. Yes, I've got a new idea. I'm actually thinking about learning how to read. Ah, read? Now Con was even more surprised. You talked with Ryan. You two are dreamers. Several guys in the bar started heckling. Whoa, what a magnificent, glorious dream for a little brave pauper. While some showed their support. Listen, good for you. Dreams make a real man. Con laughed with them for a while and then turned to Lucian. 2 years, Lucian. It will take you at least 2 years to learn how to read. You'll start from the scratch. Do you have any idea how much money and effort it will cost you? Lucian looked into his eyes and nodded firmly. I understand. So many people tell me I'm too old for this or that. But Con, as people said, better late than never. If I don't make up my mind, there will never be a start. As a university student in his original world, Lucian was confident that with all the knowledge he has mustered before, he would be able to understand the language rules and start reading very soon. Con said, I see. You're too old to enter the church school, that's for sure. Then there are two ways. Either you become an apprentice for 10 years or you pay for a teacher. But the first way, it depends on whose apprentice you want to be. I don't see the necessity for a blacksmith to learn reading. They won't pay you for that. If you can afford a teacher, it will be 5 nars a month, 5 silver coins, and the price is the same in the whole city. Lucian did not want to become an apprentice. 10 years was too long, but he also had to make sure no one would possibly find out that he was trying to learn magic. Being an apprentice meant that he had to learn to live in his master's place. That would not be good. 5 nars. It's probably gonna take you half year to save 5 nars if you work from day to night and eat the cheapest brown bread. And how much can you learn within a month? Con added. Are you still going? Lucian answered firmly. Yes, I am. 100 fells equal to 1 nar. It was a tough start, but still possible. Chapter 10. The Musicians' Association. Lucian had read many novels about how to make big fortunes from scratch. Sadly, none would be helpful for him. 7 fells were insufficient to start anything. While the morning sun was shining on the market, Lucien was already carrying a heavy bag of goods towards the gate. No matter what great dreams a person got, survival always ranked first. Beads of sweat poured down from his face. His linen clothes were all wet. What's worse, the fat guy called Gucci kept nagging him from the side. Damn, a child? Watch out, don't ruin my stuff. He wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. Or you can just pay more to find someone else. Lucien fought back in his mind. At the same time, he was also glad that he could earn more fell by doing all the work by himself. Finally, they reached the gate. Lucien laid the goods safely on the cart. Gucci reluctantly pulled out his purse and gave 4 fells to Lucien. He then paused and said, Young lad, you did a good job. The work will be yours next time as well. Lucien did all the work alone for a much lower price. No wonder Gucci now forgot all his complaints. As soon as Lucien got his pay, 2 hooligan-looking guys approached them. We work for Aaron. I'm Andre. The brown-haired man identified himself. He had a scar on his face. Lucien was already prepared for this. He handed him a fell. The other guy just stared at Lucien and said, 2. Lucien blurted out, But it should be 1. Everyone gives 1. He knew that he was in no position to argue, but he just could not stand being robbed like this. Usually, Gucci hires 2 people, so we charge 1 fell for each person. We charge you double because you did all the work alone. I don't see any problem here. Andre smiled like he was a decent businessman. A second later, Lucien lowered his head and passed the strong guy another fell. Lucien did not want to offend these gangsters. Smart boy, you know the rule. Some young lads, they love challenging us. But you see, we are still here while some of them are at the bottom of the Belém River. All right, Mag, let's go. Andre threatened him like it was usual and left. Of course, Lucien hated this. He was already prepared for this but still could not control himself. He understood that either high status or strength could help him get rid of all the suffering. I wish there were some magic potions in the notes that would help improve my strength. Only then can I do something. Lucien tried his best to stop thinking. He knew that it was a dangerous sign, a sign that he was getting tempted to learn magic. Almost everyone in the city knew the unique designed building in Musicians' Association. Very quickly, Lucien found the place called Sparkling Flame. Assembled with lines, small towers, flying buttresses, stained glasses, and flame-shaped window lattices, the whole 5-floored building held a particular unsymmetrical and flamboyant beauty. A skinny, middle-aged man with a mustache hurriedly came down from the stairs. You're late. I told you 1 o'clock. This man was George. Khan had already introduced him. George worked for the association, and it seemed like he knew quite a few guys there. George, there are still 10 minutes before the appointed time. Lucien pointed to the golden bell tower in the wealthy neighborhood, whose minute hand still had some way to go from the number 12. Waving his hand, George complained to Lucien, The cleaners finished their job earlier. You gotta move the rubbish piling in the back as soon as possible. I don't want to piss the musicians off. Some of them still have a performance this afternoon. Lucien left his rented trolley to the guards and walked into the bright and grand hall. Covered with soft and thick carpet, the floor made no noise at all. There were just a couple of people walking across the cold, quiet hall. Following George, Lucien came to a waist-high counter in the center of the hall, behind which sat a green-eyed and pretty young girl. Uncle George, is he your helper? He greeted. While she was talking, she took out a tinkling purse and handed it to George. According to Lucien's estimation, approximately 40 fells were in there. However, after paying the trolley rent, he could only get 8 fells. Holding the purse in his palms, George grinned, showing his yellow teeth, and his eyes narrowed into 2 slits. He is a good worker, although a bit young. Then he turned to Lucien. I'll leave your pay with Andre. Just find him after you finish. Lucien nodded. He was not worried that George would keep the money himself. Even though the Aaron gang was overbearing, they too had to follow the rules. Khan mentioned before that someone tried to keep some money and later he had to compensate twice the amount. When Elena, the girl, was about to find a servant to show Lucian the way to the backyard, a middle-aged man wearing a red, loose coat came in. She hurriedly stood up and bowed slightly. "Good afternoon, Mr. Victor." "Good afternoon, Elena," the man replied politely. He had blue eyes as deep as an ocean. "May I have the latest music criticism?" His voice was deep and rich. Lucian was surprised. He did not expect to find a newspaper in this world, and even specialized ones. What impressed him more was the popularization here, thinking about the fact that many people in Aderon were still illiterate. Lucian guessed not many people would buy newspapers. He also wondered how much the newspaper cost. Victor roughly went through the pages and gave Elena 10 fels. He then went towards the stairs after nodding politely to both of them with the newspaper under his arm. After he left, Lucian asked Elena curiously, "The newspaper cost 10 fels?" Having worked in the association for a whole year, Elena was proud that she could share her knowledge with someone who was also from the same poor background like she was before. In the year 486 of Saint Calendar, the Cardinal Adelaide enhanced the method for papermaking. Since then, the paper price continued declining. Now you can buy a dozen newspapers with just a couple of fels. But only members of our association can buy music criticism with 10 fels. Others, including nobles, have to pay a silvernar. Both Music Criticism and Symphony News are the most authoritative music publications across the continent. She then continued, "Every piece of music and article is produced by brilliant musicians and scholars." This month's Music Criticism published the comments from His Majesty and Princess Natasha on the concert held last week in the Sam Hall. Aside from showing off, Lucian's good-looking face was another reason why she kept offering so much information. A nar? For a moment, an exciting plan of robbing newspapers appeared in his mind. 5 nars could easily solve Lucian's problem. A second later, he realized the thought was too ridiculous. No one would buy from him. "Sure." Happy with Lucian's interaction, Elena kept talking. "You think it's too expensive? In places like Trier, Antiphilor, Ephi, Tilis, and Andahandar, these newspapers are very popular. People there honor Aalto's music very much and would even pay 1 gold thaler for an old one." Lucian took a glance at the newspapers under the counter while trying hard to resist his impulse. But he also got some information from her words. Under the mighty church, currency across the continent should be unified. Secondly, there was no such spell for teleportation. If there was, it must have very strict rules, or the nobles in other cities would not read old newspapers. More than 10 minutes later, it finally occurred to Elena that Lucian still had work to do. She reluctantly stopped herself and asked a servant to lead him to the backyard garden. "Be quiet, don't talk loud, don't move loud. In these 3 months, Mr. Victor is gonna hold his first concert in the Sam Hall. Recently, he's been pretty, sensitive," Elena kindly reminded him. Lucian nodded to her gratefully and followed the servant towards the garden.